I think that's my cue. Good morning. Welcome to our Textile Design Symposium, our annual symposium as part of Design Philadelphia. Our theme this year is Design Identity. And I'm Marcia Weiss. I'm the director of the Fashion and Textiles Futures Center and the director of the Textile Design programs at Thomas Jefferson University, formerly Philadelphia University, formerly Philadelphia Textile. I think those are all the names I need to share. So with that, we are so excited to welcome back to our symposium, Todd Bowles. Todd is the principal partner of Convergence Creations, is a brilliant textile designer. No pressure there, Todd. And a very, very engaging presenter. So with that, Todd, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Marcia. Good morning, everyone. Todd Bowles here. That was such a great introduction, Marcia. I'm not sure I can live up to all that, but I am always pleased to speak to students and to young people who are considering textile design as a career. I started my career in 1994 when most of you were probably yet zygotes and were not born yet. But anyway, I have had a really great career and I really have enjoyed myself, and it's been a really fun ride. And so I'm really, really pleased to speak with you today. I currently design for a company called DeLeo Textiles. You can check out the website. And if you can go to the what's called Carousel collection, you can see examples of my work and what the collection looks like. And it might even help you in some way to see the process and the colors and the collection and how it's sort of filled with what I call principal or feature fabrics, coordinates, and then of course the planes and textures sell very well. I work in the home furnishings industry. I design upholstery for the residential furniture market, and I've had a really great time, and it's a lot of fun. I think I'm having more fun now than I've ever had. And so another one of the great things about textile design is that it has longevity, and you can just, excuse me, sorry. You can just have fun with it for years and years. It's not something you'll ever get bored with, that's for sure. There's so many things to juggle, things to remember. So I want to get started. I want to share with you all some pointers that I have for you. Okay, great. So welcome to the Todd Bowles School of Textile Design 101, and how to maybe help you in your journey to find your way as a textile designer. I had to learn a lot sort of by trial and error and sort of scratching and clawing my way through. And, you know, it gives me such pleasure and joy to think that I might be able to short circuit some of the suffering for you and give you a few tips and pointers on how to be a textile designer. I think some of the principles that I'm going to share with you really go across all genres, whether you're in apparel or upholstery. I think that a lot of these concepts will be universal. So I always believe in intention. And what is intention? Intention is what you want to have happen in the end. And when you have a clear understanding of what it is that you want to have happen in the end, it's much easier because then you can work backwards from that. So what is your intention? When you are a textile designer, what do you want to have happen in the end? Well, in the end, you want to do two things, and that's what's at the top of the screen. Your intention is, one, you want to design beautiful, functional, in other words, usable product that sells well. If you are not happy or you're not getting the results that you want, go back to that. Are you designing beautiful, functional product that sells well? And how do you do that? Well, you have to constantly educate yourself, and you have to constantly find out information. You are, as a designer, you are a sponge. You are a living, breathing satellite dish, if you will, of taking in information. You want to, as you'll see here when I'm pointing out, you want to go to what's out there already, know what your competition is doing. What does your competition make? Um, you want to be familiar with what they're doing, because if you do something that's exactly like what they're doing, they've already established themselves in the marketplace with that look. So for you to do something exactly what they're doing is very dicey and very, very risky. So you want to be familiar with what they're doing, but not too familiar. Don't copy other creative beings or their work. You don't want to do that. You can be inspired by them, but you don't want to repeat what's already been done. And look at the past results of what you've done and what your company has done, and really take a comprehensive look over a long period of time and get some feedback from your managers, from your colleagues, from sales reports, sales history. Find out the products that have sold well. Is it because of the way they look? Is it because of the way that it's priced? Normally, things that are successful are really two things. They're a good price, and they're innovative, and they're innovative, but they're familiar. In other words, you don't want to copy what's already been done, but you want to do something that's familiar. And when you do those things and you're constantly looking at those sales and those reports, and or whatever the case may be, get some past history results and learn from that. Be that satellite dish. Take in that information. Absorb, absorb, absorb. Good designers are absorbers. They take in information. And maybe you're doing something wrong. And if that's okay, then that's okay. Don't panic or freak out. It's okay. I got a little critique a few years ago that I was doing too many feature patterns with white backgrounds. And they were right. I was repeating that note over and over and over. And, why would you, if you can buy one that's really pretty over here, why would you make 3 or 4? That's splitting sales. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've been in this industry so long, I should know that. But I wasn't paying attention. And I felt the urge to be defensive, but I thought, you know what? That's great feedback. And you learn from things like that. And in the beginning of my career, when I got a critique, I was a little too defensive. And you don't want to do that. If someone that you respect and admire is giving you honest feedback, and they're telling you, this is something that's great, this is something that's not, that is a gift from them. And you should receive that with appreciation and gratitude. And it's in your best interest to listen when you're getting a good, fair critique. The second thing in your intention, what do you want to have happen in the end? You want to grow and grow and evolve and improve as a design professional. So again, be open. If you receive a fair critique, embrace it, especially now from your professors. They're trying to help you. So really listen. It's easy to gloss over the critique. It's also easy to hear the good stuff. Oh, you have a great sense of color. I've been told down through the years, you have a great sense of color. I'm like, oh, yeah, great. But I want to know what the bad stuff is. Listen to the good feedback as well, because if someone's telling you you do something really well, you need to hammer that all day long. If someone's telling you that you're great in construction, if you're great with drawing, if you're great with color, I'm going to tell you all a secret. I don't really love doing color work, but I've been told on many occasions you're good at it. So even though I don't love doing it, I love doing it because that's what I'm good at. And that's what they want me to do. So I'm always trying to really do a good job on the thing that comes naturally to me. Oh, this is so important. Please be eager to find mentors that you can identify with. For me, I was probably about 28 years old, and I worked for a lady named Lee Belmore. And Lee we didn't hit it off at first. And then I just kind of opened up to her and I said, I really want you to teach me. I really think I can do a good job here. And that totally changed the dynamic for us. She heard me being vulnerable and reaching out and saying, I want you to help me. I trusted her taste level. I knew she had information and experience that I wanted to learn from. And I kind of made myself vulnerable. And I said, I didn't make a big speech out of it. I was just like, will you help me? I really trust your taste level, and I have a taste level, and you can help me hone my skills. And from then on, we were thick as thieves. She totally took me under her wing, and she taught me so much, and I will always be grateful to her. Be educated, read, browse, shop, look at television, internet, music, social media, take classes. Again, you are a sponge. Take in that information, take it in, and you'll be surprised at how much of it will stick with you. And a little later on, we'll talk about notebooks and journaling. But I keep a little, I'm old school, probably some of you use your phones, but you want to keep a journal of all your ideas. And, maybe you'll just like jot something down, like totally random, like, horse racing or equestrian, or right now I'm sort of channeling Asian influences. I don't know, it may lead to something, it may not, but just writing it down, it kind of puts it in the front of your cerebral cortex, and you're like, you'd be surprised how much of that sort of hangs around. And then, to grow and evolve and improve as a professional, you need to get a lot of feedback from people, and you're going to get that when you're eager and enthusiastic. You would be surprised at how many people will run to your rescue, or run to help you, or give you advice, or give you opinions, or give you something of their experience if you are open. And how do they know you're open? Because you are bright-eyed, as we say in the South, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. You are there for it. You are like, tell me, I'm here for it. And when you let people know you're ready to receive that information, they will give it to you, and it will help you. So that's your intention, okay? You're gonna make great product, and you're gonna grow as a professional. All right, so let's get started. Putting it together. I learned this concept a few years ago. I wish I'd learned it earlier in my career, but it's called the art of being non-resistant. And when I read this, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to, like read this 5 times. I just couldn't, I knew my brain needed to hear it, but I couldn't receive it. But the idea is being non-resistant. Okay, so what does that mean? Okay, so pretend like you're in like a pool of water, and you are running your hands like this back and forth through the water. The water does not resist. It opens and allows whatever you want. It doesn't resist. Yet water has the power to destroy civilizations. You want to just take everything in. Don't resist it. Don't say things like, oh, I don't like steampunk, or I don't like twisted plastic, or I don't like this, or I don't like, no, don't do that. Take in the information. Let it, allow it to influence you, and let it just sit there and marinate. You don't have to resist anything. Collect ideas. I'm a big believer in, tear sheets, pulling things out of magazines. I'm very old school. So of course I'm still getting magazines, while you probably are all on your phones getting this stuff. But, take screenshots and keep an album inside your phone, which is just like, I have a album inside my phone that's just Instagram ideas. I have pattern ideas, and I'm just constantly like, when I'm on, the road, and I'm like on a road trip, and I'm just sitting there in the car bored, I'll just sort of like organize my photos and put them in various albums. But collect those ideas. That's so important. Vision boards, mood boards. Oh my gosh, I was watching a YouTube video yesterday about mood boards. This girl was fantastic. Oh, it was so good. I loved it. But watch videos about mood boards and how to put mood boards together. She was actually in apparel, and I just thought she was fantastic. But you'll see behind me bulletin boards. People, as you can see, it's a mess, but it's up there. And everything, you'll be surprised at how when you put things up on the board, it stays with you. I have T-pens, and I just pin up everything. I have a picture here of my dad. I mean, I don't even know how that inspires me, but it does. You're constantly just putting those ideas up there. Okay, so after you've collected your ideas, you need to be thinking, okay, I need to know my audience. So suppose you go to work for a company, and this is like your first week, try to find out like, who's buying? Like, is it young women? Is it older women? Is it young men? Is it older men? You know, and again, try to find like, say to the sales force, say to your design manager, like, what are the things that we sell really well? and why. Like, know that stuff. It's so helpful because when you know the end, you can work backwards from it. So you need to find out what you're working towards. Oh, by the way, I did not clarify this putting it together. I'm sorry, is all about putting a collection together or putting designs and a concept together. Okay, so you've collected your ideas, you kind of know your audience. So now, once you know your audience and you've collected some ideas, then you can begin to funnel. It's like winnowing down and getting closer and closer to making the real specific ideas. Set your intention. What's the feeling you want to convey? Do you want to do, after you've got your ideas up and you know your audience, do you want to do like gender neutral? Is this like, African safari? Is this faraway places? Is this like elegant, finer things? Like, what is the vibe you want to go for? And then what I like to do is start with your anchor first. Okay, so what is your anchor? I always like to say that a design has like a wow factor. So you want to do your wow things first. Like, that's sort of like the pinnacle, the jewel of the collection. It's like the thing that's wow, you know? And I think it's much easier to figure out what you want your wow thing to be if you kind of imagine yourself walking into a retail store or walking into someone's home, or envisioning this person at a dinner party wearing this garment. Like, who is this person? What is, visualize, like, what is the party? What is the event? What does the home look like? And what does the store look like? And I always, because I'm in furniture, I always see a sofa in my mind, and or a club chair, and I was like, feel like, okay, you're walking into anthropology. Like, what is this feeling? Is it familiar? Because here's the thing: if you don't work out the way you want it to look in the end, and you don't visualize that end piece, I notice sometimes I've had a lot of interns down through the years, and a lot of times students will have like this initial concept, and it'll be kind of random, and then they'll kind of like say, oh, I want to do, you know, floral geometrics. Okay. And it's just so random. And then it they start working on it, and then it morphs into something, and then that morphs into something, and then that morphs into something, and then the end product doesn't really look like what you started out with, and it kept morphing into something. If you work from what you want to see in your mind's eye first, and visualize that in its end position, then you can work backwards from that, and you'll end up arriving somewhere that's more commercial and more sellable. It will be more along the lines of what the salespeople can really use and work with. So I start with the anchor first and work backwards, work on perfecting the multicolor first. The multicolor items, if you do something that's multicolored, do that first, and then it'll make the coordinates much, much easier. Give yourself more than one option. Options. Okay, this is very important. You might come up with 6 or 8 ideas. It's so much better if you come up with 6 or 8 ideas and then show them to someone and winnow down. One of the things I do as a consultant, as a freelance person, is when I'm giving people my concepts or ideas of what I think they need to do, I show them like 5 or 6 things. And it's much easier for non-creative people or people who aren't in product development to speak about design and to tell you what they want if they have options, and they can kind of help guide you, and it gets you somewhere faster. If you just come with one concept and they don't like it, it's kind of, you're out of luck. So I think options are great. And once your anchor is clear, refer back to your vision boards. I think sometimes for me, when I see like, well, what the anchor is going to be, then I'm very clear on what the other parts of the collection need to look like. It just makes sense if the centerpiece of the collection is clear. it's kind of like that when you're designing or decorating a room. Once you have that multicolored rug pattern and it's in the center of the room, then all the other furnishings, the stripes, the little harlequin designs, the chair patterns, as we call them, and the planes are much easier to figure out. Okay, color. After you've kind of set your intention and you kind of know the patterns that you want to do in the coordinates, you're going to have to eventually color things. Now, for some of you who are in apparel, you kind of have an idea specifically of this one garment, and you know exactly the colors you want to do. But sometimes it's just important to always kind of work in conjunction with your mood boards. Get those colors on there too that you're channeling. You might be channeling neutrals. You might be channeling, dark neutrals, or I actually have some color inspiration boards that I did last week. I'll grab one of them. So this is totally impromptu and totally random, but this is just I like black foam core because all the colors just jump off of black. I don't really like working off of white, but this is super loose, super quick. This whole board is a total homage to Ralph Lauren. And this is what I don't have a real specific name for it, but I'm just calling it light neutrals, beige, cream, taupe, camel, sand. It's all like sort of African safari and just faraway places. And I'm just channeling like sand and beige and white linen and crisp things. Next, we have what I call dark neutrals. I'm going to come up with better names, but right now it's just dark neutrals, this sort of sable, gold, chocolate, beige. It's a little moodier, a little more wintry, a little more woolly. Here's another one. I'm on the fence about this one. I doubt it will make it, but it's much more colorful, more feminine, more fresh. I'm calling it summery hues, multicolor, crisp, bright white. And so that's kind of how I'm doing one of my color boards right now. This is separate from a mood board, but I just like mood boards and color boards being separate, but you can absolutely do it however you want. If you want to put your colors on your mood board, that's fantastic. I mean, that's totally fine. Also, about color, you want to ask the front line, which is the sales force, ask them like what colors are selling. And they'll be happy to tell you or give you some input. Sometimes color can be tricky, and also I've noticed when I'm doing color work, I can get kind of stuck. It's like walking through quicksand. It's like I do well for a while and then I get really tired. It's exhausting. I think color work takes a lot out of you emotionally. So sometimes I have to just lay it down and come back to it. And that works out really well. Let's see. Yeah. When in doubt, walk away and come back. Have some chocolate. Chocolate always gives me a second wind with color. I don't know what that is, but yeah, take a break, come back to it, and the color will start to flow again. All right, now it's time to work on pattern and construction. And pattern and construction, you want to visualize, what's this going to look like in the end. You also really, at this point, construction is where you start talking about materials, and that's when you start talking about cost. And this is very, very important. You have to know your price point. You cannot do this gorgeous, glorious thing that, your company is known for selling goods that are, between this, let's say just for the sake of argument that, your goods are known for being like, 25 or 30 costs per unit, and you're designing something that's like $60. Well, your company's audience will never understand that. You can't jump from here to there. You have to work within those constraints. So know those constraints first off. And the other thing is about pattern and construction. When you're in product development, your job is to create something new. But if you're creating something that has to sell, you can't make something that's so new and so innovative and so couture that it's not applicable or it's not desirable, so make sure that you want it to be new and innovative, but somehow recognizable and familiar. It's a tough line to balance, but that's the gist of it. You want something that's new and innovative, but it's kind of like that. Have you ever noticed, like, when they come out with new model cars each year, Toyota or Lexus or Honda or Acura, they take the previous year's model and they tweak it, and it somehow looks new, but it looks familiar. So you can't tell if it's a 2018 or a 2022, but it's a 2022 because it's evolved. That's kind of how you want to design. You want to design past what's present. You want to go past what is currently in the market, but you don't want to go so far from it that it's totally unrecognizable. Okay, so this is something I get, presentation. It's time for you to present your ideas. You've come up with, maybe all you've come up with is just a basic concept for your collection or the item that you're working on. But before it goes into even, maybe you have to present your ideas to someone before it goes into even what we call sample making, which is like just the original prototype. But sometimes if you're like me, you go directly into prototypes and you don't review it. You have to take the prototypes and take all the prototypes and then show those to the powers that be, the design manager, the creative director. It might be the president of the company. It might be the wife of the president of the company. I mean, who knows? But eventually you're going to have to present your product. And or a sales meeting, like let's say it goes from being a prototype to going to like a real full-blown product. That's what I have to do twice a year at Showtime. I have to get up in front of everyone and talk about my collections and what was inspiring to me and why I did what I did. And in the beginning, I was nervous. Even though it may seem like I'm this really, gregarious, campy person, I am, like, oh my gosh, I got to get up and talk about my babies, like, oh, so nerve wracking. But one of the things I learned very quickly is that you don't have to worry about that. All you really need to do is be pleasant and focus on what you know. Just look down at what you have done and don't think about them or what they think of you or what you have on or anything like that. Just, you're there. It's time to focus on looking down and just talking about what you know, and you can't go wrong. Just speak about, this is what this is. This is why I did what I did. This is why I think it's important, and they will be engaged. One tip I will give you, I notice sometimes among young people, they say things like, they apologize. They say things like, oh, I'm sorry, I've never done this before, or I'm not used to this, or this is new for me. No. Or, oh, even worse, the reason this looks the way it does is because, no, do not do that. Do not apologize. Don't do it. This is what it is. This is why I have it. That's what it is. If there's a flaw in it and you know where it is and you know what it is, that's fine. If it's something that's dire and something that you think is really like a problem, then speak to your design manager privately ahead of time. But for the most part, if you're in your own head and you think, oh, I'm not sure if they're going to like this or not, don't say that. It waters you down. Just don't do it. And be excited. Show your enthusiasm. I'm telling you, enthusiasm is contagious. So if you have like an upbeat, excitement about what you're talking about, they will get on board as well. And that also helps with the presentation. It relaxes everyone. If they can see that you're nervous, then they're uncomfortable for you. So my mom always says, just fake it till you make it. And that is, in this instance, especially if you're not used to presenting, that's great advice. Just get up there and just pretend like, you know these people and just psych yourself out. And then, when you're done, if you want to go in the bathroom and throw up, that's fine. But when you are doing it, just act really cool, calm, and collected. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and they'll be on board. Okay, final pointers. Make lists. I make lists of everything. So if you're feeling ever in your career overwhelmed, then just make lists. this is all the stuff I have to do. My lists right now are so janky and crazy looking, but they're here and I'm crossing them off. And every time you cross off what you've done, you'll breathe easier, you'll sleep at night. I'm telling you, when you get anxious or feel overwhelmed by the amount of stuff you have to do, just sit down on a blank sheet of paper or on your phone and just make a list of all that you have to do. It will help you to prioritize, and it will help you. And it's a great feeling when you cross something off. It's a really nice feeling. Okay, this is another one. Okay, so as creative beings, as you can see behind me on my boards, they're a little chaotic, but it's managed chaos. And I know about where everything is. Um, I have stacks of stuff in my office. As creative beings, we can get excited and enthusiastic, and we kind of start like, once we're on a roll, we're like, well, I don't have time to be organized. I've just got to go with this feeling right now. But the problem is you get really kind of, disorganized, and it's really not cool for your coworkers, especially in the community or shared spaces. Keep your clutter down, keep it to a minimum. You'll be able to manage yourself and your work so much better. And last but not least, enjoy your job. As creative beings, we really want to, you know, of course, we're all wanting to make money. That's what we're in it for. But at the end of the day, for us, creating is not about money. And we just want to express ourselves and get that creative energy out. And um, just remember that, don't lose sight of that. You're getting to do something that you need to do, which is create and express. So there will be times when you're frustrated and this is driving me crazy, but enjoy yourself, enjoy your life, and enjoy textile design. It's a great thing. Okay, so I think that is good. I'll stop there. I think this was a time that we were going to open up for Q&A.
Yeah, Todd, that was fantastic. Thank you. And we
Uh-huh.
do have many questions for you.
Oh, Lord.
So,
Okay.
because the theme of our symposium today
Mhm.
is design identity, what led you to become a textile designer? Like what was that path for you?
I always been a fashion kid. My mom worked in a beautiful clothing boutique, but I always knew that I loved fiber and fabric and color, and I didn't want to be in apparel. I was that was a very competitive field, and so it kind of one thing led to another. I just kept making. Um, I went to work as a textile designer in LaFrance, South Carolina for RV, recreational vehicles. I did not like that. And I wanted to, then they put me in automotive, and I did not like that. So we also had a home furnishings division, and they brought in some competitor samples, and I saw, it just spoke to me, Marcia, very clearly. And I think that's what I want the students to understand, is that you don't have to land immediately in the thing that you're supposed to do. Just relax, be non-resistant, be open to lots of experiences, and it will unfold in front of you, and you will know it will happen.
Thank you. I think that's a fantastic answer. You talked about essentially not like developing your own style. So not like being inspired by others, not copying others.
Mhm.
So what's the Todd Bowles look, and has this changed over time?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, for sure. I call it your design voice, and every creative person, a writer has their own voice. Singers have obviously their own voice, their own style, your own technique, your own feeling. I think for me, I've always known that Ralph Lauren was a huge inspiration to me. I always knew that when I was a kid, that I would create my own outfits based on the story that I was telling, that day. And he's like that as well. He's a storyteller. And I just loved him, and I loved that feeling, and he inspired me. I think, Marcia, it's really important to find your design voice. I think one of the easiest ways to do that is to look at your closet, to look at your life, to look at your home, to look at who you've always it's funny, when I was a kid, I remember doing these like latch hook rugs, and I remember making pot holders out of those like really cheap multicolored loop looms. And it was like, when I look back on it, I was always going to be a textile designer. I was always making fabric. I was always doing that. But I always loved Ralph Lauren. I was always attracted to him. I think what I'm saying is that your voice, you know, it's in there, it's in your closet, it's in your repertoire. You may not be intimately familiar with it, but it's there if you'll pay attention. So I know. So what is my style? My style is the tagline for carousel is if it isn't sexy, it isn't carousel. So I like things that are sensual, things that are very slinky. I like things that are kind of gender neutral. I like denim. I like things that are layered, and sort of have a um, basis of kind of like elegant, sophisticated neutrals, but I always like that pop of color.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but yeah, that's what I would say.
Well, and that leads to now, we've had two follow-up questions come in from your response. So
Mhm.
the first one is would you then say that Ralph Lauren is your design muse?
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
Yep. And I watched a gorgeous documentary on him, and he just inspires me in so many ways. So yeah, for
I think
sure.
that your comments about him being a storyteller
Mhm.
really resonate with me because I find that the narrative that people will often remember the narrative of a collection. They
Mhm.
might not remember an individual textile,
Yep.
but the story behind. So,
So true, Marcia. Yeah.
and then the second question, as a follow-up to what you've just shared, is about a pop of color. So, does that pop of color change over time?
Absolutely. Oh my God, absolutely. I mean, practically daily. I mean, but yeah, I mean, you know, yes, it does. It changes often. I would say, it's like my friend Katie, who's also a designer, said to me when she was first entering the industry, she said, "Well, I know when the trends change." I said, "Yeah, you will. It's not something, it's kind of like you don't realize you're crossing over a threshold, but you look back on it 2 or 3 years later and you're like, oh my gosh, I crossed that threshold. You don't it just happens. It's very, very natural.
So what advice would you have for our students about how they could find a mentor? How does that happen?
Well, I think you have to really like them. I think you have to really like admire them. I think you have to okay, this is my rule of thumb. If I can imagine myself going to lunch with them and
Hmm.
hanging out with them, then you know they're cool. I can hang with them. We can find common ground. I don't think that you ever know who you're going to like, or who's going to like resonate with you. It might be someone who's completely like outside of your normal. uh I don't know if there was a great show on Netflix called The Queen's Gambit, and this girl was like a chess prodigy, and the man that inspired her was like the custodian that worked in the basement. Who knew that he would introduce her to chess and totally change her life? That's a work of fiction, but I'm just saying that like a lot of times your mentors aren't who you think they'll be. It might not even be a designer. It might be someone who's more of a numbers person, but they're going to inspire you to open your mind to something. Your heart knows what you need. So if maybe
Hmm.
there's an aspect of the business you don't that doesn't resonate with you, or you don't understand, maybe working with an accountant or someone who's got more of a 0-1 mind will open up some part of your mind that needs to be opened. So don't zero in on someone, let things happen organically. But if someone you really like and they're in design and you see them being a mentor, let them know you admire them. Don't stalk them or be, don't freak them out, but you'll find them, and they'll speak to you in a way that no one else will.
I appreciate the "don't stalk them" comment.
Yeah. Don't freak them out, please.
So
I'll just say one more thing. As I know I said this in the presentation, but my mentor was, at first we didn't hit it off, but we became very close, and we're still close to this day. And so give it time. Sometimes these things unfold.
I actually think that's true of a lot of our industry. I think that the textile industry is made up of people that connect for a long time, that become
Yeah.
friends or become colleagues, and that lasts for decades.
Yes.
So in the getting to know your audience, the question that has come up is, as part of that, do you do a lot of store visits? Like how do you keep up with what's going on in the industry?
Well, I think it's very, very important. One of the great things is social media. Instagram is fantastic for that. You want to absolutely follow the important people and the important players, whether it be your competitors, your customers' customers. That's super important. And I think Instagram is fantastic for that. I rely very heavily on Instagram now. And it just comes up in my feed, but I also go to that little magnifying glass, and it just kind of automatically like shows me all the stuff that I normally like and look at. It's like one of those crazy algorithms that it's like, wow, I didn't even know. Pinterest is fantastic as well. Those little bulletin boards, that you can keep for yourself are fantastic. Um, I I'm very realistic about magazines. I usually keep it to 3. I can't keep track of more than that. They just accumulate. I don't have time, and frankly, I don't have the interest. I always subscribe to Vogue. Vogue is the Bible. Vogue is where all things come from, in my opinion. So I definitely subscribe to Vogue. Vogue is a fashion magazine, has nothing to do with home furnishings. Well, I won't say nothing, but very little. I look at Harper's Bazaar, and I look at, right now I'm channeling traditional home, but I usually rotate the industry magazine. Um, and again, I know this is not the specific finite answer that probably some of the students want, but just be open. As I said before, you're a satellite dish. Look around you, take in the culture, take in the world, and kind of keep track of it. And just be open, and remember those things that stick with you. I was in New York, and I was going past a window display at well, it's not Macy's. I think it was like Lord and Taylor. And I just loved this window display. And I took a picture of it, and eventually it became a pattern. So just be open, allow things, take pictures. I mean, just be open.
And that's what we see on the boards behind you. Is we're getting this little glimpse into how you work and the sorts of things that you're collecting. And comments from the audience that they love that you shared the color board. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like a peek into the future.
Well, I want to show you this. These are old notebooks, okay? And inside it's just like crazy junk, random business cards. I mean, it's everything. But it helps to keep if you don't organize your thoughts either through boards or journaling or something, it becomes frightening. You're like, I can't keep track of all this. So the things that are most important, make the boards and make the books. And that's very, it's reassuring.
Well, it sounds as though that sort of helps keep you focused as well on those
For
things.
sure. Yeah.
So when you're working on, I'm sure this has happened at some point in time. If you're working on a project that you are finding less than inspiring, what do you do? How do you manage that?
Well, things can be uninspiring for a couple of reasons. One might be that it needs a tweak. Sometimes, it's because you've been mandated from upper management to work on something that you just really don't want to do. So I think the most important thing is to go back to your intention, Marcia. I think it's to go back
Hmm.
to the beginning and start over. Figure out, be specific. I remember when I first started working with Katie, it was really hard for her to specifically talk about things that she, like, I would say, zero in on the thing that's bothering you. And that's the gift of the critical eye. As creative beings, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, we have what's called the critical eye, and you have to use that gift and zero in specifically on what is bothering you, what is annoying you, what's going wrong here. And then once you understand what it is that's bothering you, then you can work backwards from that and figure out how to get out of that. Um, you know, I'm trying to think of an example. Like sometimes when I'm working on neutrals and I'm doing like colors, like in the home furnishings industry, neutrals are very, very important. Grays, beiges, and it's very uninspiring and sometimes to do another set of neutrals and like again. But one of the ways that I, get out of that is I stop what I'm doing. Stop for a second. If you're feeling pulled down, stop, take a break. Don't keep going. If it's just going to the restroom for 5 minutes, or maybe it's working on another project for an hour, um, you know, give yourself mentally a break from it and say, okay, I need a fresh set of eyes here. Recognize that your heart is like not in it right now. Pay attention to that,
Mhm.
and you know mark that in your mind and say, I'm not feeling this. And that kind of gives your heart, like a little bit of a hall pass, and then you can like come back to it after you've rested and breathed a little bit. But I would say, Marcia, to answer that in a short way, I would say, slow down, go back to your intention, and relax.
I think those are great tips. How has your experience with the change in supply chains caused you to adapt the way you design? So obviously this last year and a half has been not at all typical, not normal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually a great question. This has been a real struggle. um, I mean, specifically, I take tons of pictures. I've gotten very clever with um, using paint and some of the other tools on my laptop, like pointing to things with arrows and saying, "This is the texture I want. This is the texture that's wrong." Um, I'm using a lot of photography now. I'm using whatever I can visually to in the creative process. That's what I'm doing. I'm also um, creating like what I call care packages for the manufacturers. And I am, stapling examples of things that I'm looking for, things that I like. I'm always thinking about the audience, like I'm thinking about the end, what it's going to be like in the end. When they open this package, they are non-creative people. They need specific information. So I have to, water it down or make it very basic and think, how can I speak to them so that they'll understand this? Um, and also, I've had to have some conversations with the principals of the company to say, we're in challenging times, and this is how I'm working. and this is what this is the protocol that I'm using to accomplish this. And that way, when they meet with the vendors or the manufacturers, they'll say, you know, this is what we're hearing from our product development team, communicating and being open and trying things. And some things will fail. But, you know, it's through that process that you find the path that you need to be on.
And that, I think that speaks right back to intention, which is one of the things that you
Sure.
started with, and that kind of clarity. I have a really short story to share about that. When I was in a different job, we had a toile pattern, a toile de jouy, and it had people on it. And we were making holiday stockings, Christmas stockings.
Mhm.
And I was working with a vendor in the US, a cut and sew facility in the US. I did not think to say to them, it's a one way, that it's a directional pattern, that the people have to be going upright. And so what they did was they maximized the cutting. And so every other half of the stocking was upside down.
Yeah.
And I learned, you know,
Yeah.
it's something that I would not have taken for granted working with perhaps a different factory in a different country, but I took it for granted. So yeah, I wasn't clear
It's a
with my
great story.
intention. So, so if any of you out there have holiday stockings with a toile de jouy on it and people are upside down, my fault. So, so
That's a
we
great
love,
story.
yeah, yeah. You know, you live and learn. So we love the idea of chocolate. My colleague Jen Rhodes is bringing on a new color course for our students, which I think is fantastic. And I've just made a note that we need to include chocolate as part of the course.
Love that. And I like dark chocolate, so make sure you have something for the dark lovers.
Yeah. Well, and isn't dark chocolate the healthier chocolate after all?
Well, I think so. I hope so.
I do think it is. I don't know why, but I do
Dark
think it is.
chocolate is the best chocolate. Dark chocolate is the best chocolate.
I think
There's
so.
always a stash hidden in my house.
Yeah,
I'll just
love
have to
it.
bring it to class with me.
Oh, so I've got another question from our audience. You spoke to finding a balance between patterns or textiles that are new and innovative and still are familiar and relatable. So how do you find that balance?
That's a great question. I mean, I think that's wherein lies the magic, really. And that's what separates really the good designers from the great designers. So I'd love to give you a really pat answer for how to find the magic, but that's kind of like a little elusive. Um, I think it's very important to keep the word aspirational in mind, meaning I think that we all, as creative people, are dreamers and fantasy makers, and you are creating a feeling, an emotional response to a tangible object. In creating beauty, you're wanting people to go, "Ooh, what is that?" Or, "Ooh, I like that." That's an emotional response to a tangible item. So you're kind of seducing them. You're sort of luring them, like you're wanting them to have a reaction, a visceral, sensory reaction. And I wish I had a pat answer for how you do that. I personally think you want people to aspire to it. When they see something that they can see themselves doing or being a part of or engaging with, that's aspirational. So you want them to aspire to it and look for that to be with them. I want that in my home. I want that in my retail collection. I want that in my life. So you've got to create aspirational feelings. I wish I had a better answer.
I think that was a great answer. And I've made notes of that we're dreamers and fantasy makers.
Yeah.
Love that. Love that. I
Yeah.
think I think we're going to start using that in our marketing. So you might see that come up. So
Well, I'd like a royalty, Marsha. I mean, I'm just saying.
okay.
No,
So
that's great. I'm glad. I like that.
what I've just heard is I need to edit it out of this so I don't have to give you the royalty when we use it. Oh, and also love the make lists if you're feeling overwhelmed, because
Yeah.
truly, I mean, all of us, regardless of where we are in our lives, have those moments where it feels like there's so much to do and just not enough time.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you're, one of the things I've noticed in my career is, a lot of these kids don't realize this, but, I came along before there was even email,
Mhm.
and the more it's funny that as we have advanced with technology, it's like more multitasking is expected of us, and it's overwhelming at times. It's like more, faster, faster. Again, lists will help you keep your sanity in that way.
And if that helps lead to the joy, because what you've talked about and what you ended with
Yeah.
in your list was
Yeah.
really about living life.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Don't forget to live, and life is for living.
Well, and I think we're going to leave that as the very last word on this.
Oh,
So,
good.
Todd,
Okay.
thank you so much. Thank you for
You're
that
welcome.
brilliant presentation. I know that all of our attendees really enjoyed it so much.
Good.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So again, Todd, our great thanks to you.
Thank
Happy
you.
designing, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
All right. Thank you,
All right.
guys.